Good evening. It's Tuesday. No, it isn't. It's Thursday, the 11th of June, 2020. And we welcome you to a webinar for trainee MFL teachers with Steven. We saw him on Tuesday and had a lovely evening, and we're in for another treat, I know, the part 2. So I'm Helen Myers. I'm the chair of the London branch. And I'm a member of ALL, and Steven will definitely be talking about ALL as well. We're both very, very committed. He's the membership secretary as well as other things. And we'd be love to know if you're already a member, perhaps you could write that in the chat. And if you're not, join. And if you join us today with the code webinar10, then you'll get a 10% discount. And I did get a question recently about how long that's going. It is going until the 30th of September. There was somebody who just couldn't join just then, but really join as soon as you can, because then you get all of the benefits. So I'll be putting a link in the chat window, and you'll have something from me later on to remind you of what the web address is to be able to get a link to this recording afterwards. And just to advertise other things which are coming tomorrow morning at 10 o'clock in the morning, we've got Chris Hart, who's in Australia. He's from the Northeast. And, you know, we really have a great affection for Chris because he was always very involved over in this country. And now he's involved internationally with ideas about Google in the classroom. I've left this here, this from yesterday, we had Julia Morris talking about escape rooms, which was amazing. And that's how I'm going to spend my entire weekend, making an escape room. And then on June the 20th, we've got the ALL London event. And that's a live event, just in the morning, a long morning. And we'll have Dr. Rachel Hawkes, Wendy Adeniji, and Nadine Shadier who are going to speak. So it's all free, but that one's going to be live and not recorded. So please do join us. We've already got well over 200 people, but we can take up to 500. So whether you're joining us on Zoom or YouTube live stream, we have an etiquette whereby we are professional and kind at all times. And we always have to say that we're very happy to host speakers and participants free of charge, and they are responsible for what they say. So here we have got Steven Fawkes, who you're going to be hearing, twice president of the Association for Language Learning, and he's now a trustee and a membership officer, and in 2013 elected as a fellow of the association. We don't have many of those. That's really a very prestigious situation to have. Chair of the ALL branch in the northeast of England, very, very involved with ALL, and you can see that he has an impressive career, which he's had. In particular, I'm always impressed every time you mention the BBC, Stephen, really, anybody who's worked for the BBC. So, and also an author of articles. But in particular, I would say also he's somebody you have to listen to at least once a year, and you always will do. If you're a member of ALL, you'll always have that opportunity. So over to Steven now, who's really, he'll introduce himself to be able to say what the purpose of his webinar is. Over to you.
Thank you. Thank you very much. So welcome back, everybody, those people who were here the other day. Thank you for coming back, and welcome to the people who are making it for the first time. You're at a disadvantage because you don't know what my yellow word was from last time. But the people who were here last time will remember my yellow word and will now type it into the chat box so that everyone knows what it was.
Always giving us challenges, aren't you?
There we are. So my yellow word, my keyword, my buzzword was motivation. That's one of my main thoughts when I've been a language teacher, thinking about motivating my learners because I want them to be as interested in my languages as I am, and not just the language, but the culture and the people and everything else that goes with it, and the communication, probably especially. So I was going to start off today, if you play the next one, please, Helen. I was going to start off with a bit of music, just to give you a bit of a cultural opening. And I'd picked two contrasting bits of music, because my suggestion was you could use this as the entrance music to your lesson. So if you've got pupils coming from a lesson where they've been very noisy and running around and doing things, you might want to play. I'm not going to play these, Helen, don't worry.
Oh, sorry, right, okay.
I just think we haven't got probably, I'm going to miss
right,
that.
Okay.
People can play it when they look at the PDF later on.
Fine.
So the first one is a Spanish song, as you can probably see, which goes like this. It's very slow, very restful. And as you listen to it, you get the sounds of Spanish obviously, which is what I want my pupils to be listening to. But you also get your pulse slowing down, your brain waves moving into a Spanish order, and you start to think like a Spanish person, really. That's my suggestion. Opening music for that one. The second one, though, is if I've got people coming from a lesson where I know they've been very quiet, if they've been doing something like an exam, and I want to get them a bit more agitated in a way. So the second one is more of a rhythmic song. It's also sung with a very strong Marseillais accent for those people who like that sort of thing. So again, it's got my cultural content, it's got the rhythm of the language, it's got the sounds of the language, the phonics, all going on at the same time. And that would just be when the pupils are coming in, sitting down, getting ready for the lesson. There wouldn't be any other task attached to it. There wouldn't be anything that they have to say about it unless they ask me a question, which they might do. As you know, I like to have people interrupting me and being spontaneous. There's a little warning for you. Next.
Okay.
So there, I've told you that already, or you've told me that. Thank you. Next.
Ooh.
So one of the things that I talk to as well, when I see a lot of teenagers in their schools now for different sorts of reasons. I'll answer your question, Emily, in a moment, is about language being not only a tool for communication, for study, and for finding things out. It's also an instrument of power. Yes, knowledge is power and language is power. And my example is this one here, which I saw in an exhibition. It's from the time of the Han Dynasty, which is the one when you had the famous warriors, the terracotta warriors. And it's a piece of gold, which is about the size of a credit card, about that size. It's a piece of gold that's been painted black, so it looks like a tiger. But the exciting thing is the language. Can you see the language that goes across his chest? If you press the next screen, Hannah, please. And again. So those are in gilt. They're not, they're black, aren't they? Anyway, they're the characters across the screen, and they say, Helen, the king orders the mustering of troops. So this little thing was the object that the king would send to his general when he was about to start a battle or a war. So it's telling people, I'm telling the people who are listening to me, that an item that's that big with 5 characters on it can lead to death and destruction and to the changing of history and of people's lives. So language is a really powerful thing. In our classroom, it's not nearly quite so powerful because we don't have people killing each other on the same sort of scale regularly, although it happens from time to time. But we do things in the classroom where we have to give children, or teenagers as well, power to say things with their language, to make other people react. That's what I mean by it having power. And that's the aspect of creativity that engages a lot of younger learners, particularly less able ones, that they can make other people, especially teachers, do things that they're telling them to do. Next, and next again, I think. So we had these questions last time, if you remember. We were talking about apples last time round. Today, we're not talking about apples, but I wanted just to talk to you about these 6 questions, well, not all questions, these 6 bits of grammar, these 6 tools, these 6 items of language. And I'd like you to be able to see me while I'm doing this. So can everyone see me on the screen, even if I'm small, it doesn't matter. So I'm going to teach you these 6 expressions in English and in sign language as well. I'd like you to try to remember the sign language because you'll need it a bit later on. So I can't see you all unless you turn on your camera and all become visible to me suddenly. I can just see Helen. So Helen is going to have to represent.
If you like, I can stop sharing and you can see them. Would you like to do that? Or do you want us to be able to see this as well?
I need to remember, and I won't remember what they are. So that I can just do it like that. But I can see 3 people now.
Okay.
I can see Bracken and I can see Rebecca and I can see you. So you're going to be my proof that you're listening to me.
Okay.
So the question where is in sign language looks like this. 2 hands, palm upwards, and you move them in a circle like that. Where is?
Can I tell you, everybody's doing this. It's lovely to see.
The next one, how much is? This is with the palm of your hand and the fingers of your other hand, and you sort of go like this because you count in the coins. How much is? Can you show me where is again? And how much is? Very good. Now, the next one is I want, and this is with a fist, and it's a fist against your heart. I want, okay, which is different from I like, that looks like that. I like is a hand, I want is the fist. So let's just see how much again, how much is, and where is. Very good. And now we're going to I have got. I have got looks like this, the hand extended, and you grasp the things together. So that's I have got. And I haven't got is like that, when you just got them all. I've got, I haven't got. Show me I want again. I want, very good. And the last one is an instruction, give me, and it looks like this. So my hand is over there, and I'm bringing it to me. Give me. Give me. Okay, so Helen, can you challenge the other people now to do one of those signs for you? Which one are you going to pick?
Yes. Where is? Very good.
So where is? And another one?
I haven't got. Very good. Rebecca's speedy there.
One more.
And give me.
Yeah, we haven't practiced that one as much, so that's harder to remember. Give me. Very good. Moving on, please, Helen. We'll come back to that a bit later on. So this is when I look back at myself as a teacher in the classroom, these are the things that I see that I was trying to do most of the time. These were like my mission statement underneath my heading of motivation. These were the things I tried to bear in mind when I was planning activities with classes of all different sorts and different ages. So what can I bring? What's personal to me, and what tells the story of why I'm engaged with languages and other cultures and other people? Interaction would be the key thing, especially with classes who were not particularly, what would you say, sophisticated in their thinking. They needed things to do rather than things to think about. And then there's my list of things I want people to be interested in. That's my thinking about what sort of teacher I was. I'm not by any means saying that's the sort of teacher anybody else should be. We're all different from each other. We're all being brought into languages for different sorts of reasons. So what I would like you to think about is, what would your principles be? If you were to write a similar list, what sort of things would you have in there? What are the things that really give you pleasure in your teaching, or have given you pleasure as well in your language encounters, in your traveling and your reading and so on and so on? Because those are the things that keep you going. Those are the personal things that attach you to your language and to your teaching. And if you don't hang on to those, it's too easy to get eroded by the worries of every day and the jobs you have to do every day in school. And you gradually get eroded and you get more distance from what you really believe in. So I think you need to hang on to those things, write them down somewhere, and just look at them occasionally to remind yourself what sort of person you want to be. So why do my pupils need some of these things, and why do we need them to be exposed to these things? And my answer is that we need language sensitive people. Last time I showed you some translations and some signs in France that didn't show particular cultural awareness of the English language. And today I'm going to show you some more, but these are photographs of products. These are things that were put on the market by other nations thinking that they would sell well in an Anglophone culture. So we'll just go through them a little bit slowly, Helen, so people can read them. Off you go. Another one. There we are. So here we have a yogurt which rejoices in the name of bat milk. Maybe it's on the principle that when you had Batman, he had bat ropes and bat machines and bat cars. Maybe he would eat bat milk, but that's a very targeted audience, I think. I think the market would be larger than that. And I'm not sure that bats produce enough milk to make yogurt with. Next one. Again. Okay, that must be a mistake. That can't possibly be what they really mean to say. I don't think it's made of shredded children, because I don't think it would be that colour, for one thing. But it's delicious and classic, so there we are. Next one. So these are some sort of biscuit with chocolate in them, but Crunky Nude Ball is not something I would dare to ask for in my local branch of Tesco, even if they stocked it. And I think there's one more. Yeah, It's very unfortunate, isn't it? Especially because it's a hot drink. I don't know why that's so offensive, but the fact that it's a hot drink is even worse. Helen does have a cough, by the way. She's not ill. She has a cough naturally.
Chronic cough, sorry.
Thank you. When you're ready, Helen, the next one.
Next one.
So here we go back to our friends at Ofsted. And back in 2011, they were telling us about authentic material. Remember, authentic is one of the subtitles of my session on Tuesday and today, authentic and creative. So they're talking about there being a wealth of authentic material out there, which is interesting, enjoyable, stimulating, or sometimes funny, as in the cases we've just seen, and that opens up all of these different areas of the students' learning activities. So we can be thinking about bringing more authentic things in if we are basing our activities, our other language activities around them. It's not an extra, it's something we're bringing in because it stimulates those things as well. That's why I'm talking about that in this context this evening. Next. Okay, you have to click through these, Helen, a little bit quickly. I gave this list the other day, and I was saying that these are the sorts of things I'd have on my screen in case anyone wanted to interrupt me and ask a question or ask me to tell them one of those stories. So I'm just reminding you of that. And there's no response, so we'll move on again. So here we are.
Do we have a response?
Oh, no, there's no response. Oh, there is one there. Naked in Vienna is the one I knew you'd go for. Adultery in Flemish is first. So you can have Adultery in Flemish, which is quite a short story. All of these are little anecdotes. They're just things that I made a note of at the time. And this was a television series on Channel 4 about 3 years ago now. And it was called The Outlaws. So instead of being the in-laws, it was all about a family. They were outlaws because there was a murder right at the start of it. Anyway, the thing that really amused me was it was in Flemish, so Dutch Flemish, and it was subtitled in English. And so I was watching the subtitles and listening to the Flemish to see what I could identify, because it was a bit like German, for example. And a lot of it I could follow, especially the swear words. They use all our swear words. But eventually they came to a scene where they were accusing this person of adultery. And so I was watching the subtitles with great interest to see what the word for adultery might be. And the word for adultery in Flemish is overspill, which made me think of all those people who go to National Trust houses and the car park is full and they have to go into the overspill car park. What must the Flemish people think? What do they think goes on in that car park in the National Trust houses? There we are. There's a story you got out of me. Next one, please. So those are the questions we've just done. You all remember those questions? Can you turn your cameras back on again, those people who I can see? So we've got those questions. And now I'm going to teach you a few nouns. And we're going to learn these nouns in French. So when we click on I think it's on the next screen, Helen. Let's see what happens next. Okay, so there we have le chocolat. And it looks like this. In sign language, it's a letter C that you draw on the side of your cheek. Le chocolat. Très bien. Next one.
Sorry.
Les bonbons. Almost the same, but it's just the point of your finger. Les bonbons, le chocolat. Très bien. Le poulet, as you might expect, is the beak. Le poulet. Très bien. Les haricots. This is a weird one. It's not the proper sign. I'm just doing a little swipe on the inside crook of my elbow. This is the sign for green, because I haven't got time to do green beans. That would be green and then beans. That's too long. So I'm just going to do green. You have to take the beans as red. And I think there might be one more. La banane. You can draw the banana, or you can peel the banana if you prefer. Both are possible. And is there one more?
Oh, right.
Fine. No, we could just go on because we'll come back to that in just a moment. So communicating for practical purposes, this is at the core of our curriculum and our GCSE in principle. And then we had the extra thing, if you remember, I mentioned last time in the last version of the curriculum 2014, that we should be introducing our learners all the way through to what they call great literature in the original language. This obviously has to mean age-appropriate great literature. We can't be introducing 7-year-olds to the works of Dostoevsky in the original Russian. That wouldn't make sense because they weren't written for 7-year-olds. So it obviously means, whether it says so or not, that we choose appropriate, what we call literature. Thank you, Helen. So to do that, because of this challenge back in 2014, we started a project around literature to try and help Key Stage 3 teachers in particular think about what sort of literature was relevant to their pupils. And then it developed into Key Stage 2 and Key Stage 4 as well. So we've created that wiki that I mentioned to you maybe last time. Anyway, that's the wiki where we host all of these things contributed by language teachers around the country, where they're suggesting texts that their pupils have liked or might like, and they talk about how they would exploit them or how they have exploited them with their classes. Alongside that, there is the blog that we did alongside the new curriculum back in 2014. All of those resources are still live. Pardon me. So if you need to do some, if you'd like to do a bit of training and consider any of those issues, literature, spontaneous speaking, translation, grammar, or extended writing, then there are modules on that blog. You'll get this presentation, by the way, and the other one from Tuesday in a PDF, which will come by email from Helen later on. So if you can't write down the links now, you'll be able to follow them later on.
Because I can see people writing down there.
So the literature wiki is one that I look after. I do the editing and the compiling of that, so I know it very well. And I was mentioning to you yesterday that there are some strategies that a lot of language teachers use when they're exploiting an authentic text, particularly a literary text. So I want to illustrate some of those this evening as well. Next, Helen, please. So here, for example, we have a poem by Pablo Neruda. It's a lovely, lovely poem. It's slightly melancholy, but it's got lovely language in it. And if you're a Hispanist and you just have a go at mouthing those words at yourself, you can feel how the words feel inside your mouth as you're saying them. However, you might not give that to a Key Stage 3 class or even a Key Stage 4 class because you're saying, well, they'll never understand all that. We've got some obscure verbs, we've got some unusual adjectives and so on. But my suggestion is that you don't have to understand that. It depends what activity you give them, whether the text is useful or not. So don't judge it all on the standard of the language. Obviously, that's written by a native speaker for other native speakers who are adults. So if we move on, Helen, what you might do with that, instead of getting them to understand it, translate it, interpret it, would be a sort of a recitation activity. So they could listen to it. The link at the bottom there is a lovely performance of that particular poem. They could listen to that and then they could have a go at doing it for themselves. They might do it in their pairs at their tables, or you could have a little classroom competition. They could all take a few lines and try and declaim it, perform it. So thinking about the sound of the word and the feel of the words in their mouth as not so much about the meaning, although they need some sense of the meaning so they could interpret the poem properly. So we'd have to talk about it being slightly melancholy and so on. So that's a challenge to recite a poem, as Helen knows only too well, because I asked her to do that in her webinar last week and she did it very well. But it's also a nice challenge because you get applauded at the end of it. Okay, next, please. And again. Yeah, so if we're looking at a poem, you can just keep on pressing. I think it fills the whole screen, Helen. We might be processing through all these steps. So we might just go for one step or a couple of steps. But if we're working with a poem, we don't have to look at the meaning in detail until the end of the process if we don't want to, because we can do all those other things before we go there. We can talk about the words that look like words we know that might be from the same family. We can talk about any words that may be cognates. We can focus on words that rhyme. We can do our phoneme and grapheme work there as well. So if we've been doing that earlier with younger learners, they've learnt their phonemes and graphemes. By the time you get to year 8, 9, you still need to be doing them because they'll forget them. But you're not going to do them in the same way as you did them when they were 10 or 11 years old. So maybe you do it through an authentic text like this one. The repetitions, one of those guided reading activities where you start to read it and then you stop and the class has to read the next few words out to you to prove that they're following and listening to what you're saying. and so on and so on. So there are many things you can do with it. Oh, Veronica is offering to read it. Go on, can we go back and Veronica will read us a few lines?
Yes, let's have that. So if you can open up your audio. Veronica.
Hi, can you hear me now?
Yes.
Yeah, so would you like me to read it?
Let's read the first down to quiso, please.
So first line, you mean?
Yeah, down to the 6th line.
Okay. Puedo escribir los versos más tristes esta noche. Escribir, por ejemplo, la noche está estrellada y tiritan azules los astros a lo lejos. El viento de la noche gira en el cielo y canta. Puedo escribir los versos más tristes esta noche. Yo la quise y a veces ella también me quiso.
Thank you. That was lovely. Thank you very much. You can see what I was saying about the sound of the language being so, there's something very powerful about that one in particular, I think. I'm not quite sure why that is.
Mm.
So let's go on again, Helen, please, to the end of that one. And the next one. So this is one of the things that we want our learners to start to do. We can tell them words to remember, we can give them lists of words, vocabulary, and important verbs and important adjectives and bits of grammar and so on. We can tell them that, but if that's coming from us, that's not nearly so motivating for them as if they've chosen to write it down for themselves. So when we're looking at a poem like that one that Veronica just read for us, we might be saying, now, which is the word in there that you really like the look of? Let's work out what it means. Let's work out how you spell it, if it changes, if it's a variable word or not. And then write it down in your book. And then next time you're doing a piece of writing or speaking, see if you can bring it in. So they're making a personal connection with the language by choosing some of their own vocabulary, as well as the things we're telling them all to do. Next. So this is the balance I think we need with some of our learners. They need a lot of stimulus. Some of them need waking up quite severely in the morning. They also need challenge because that makes them think and that makes them remember. So challenge is part of that thing about revisiting language we've taught them before. When we come back to it, we need to do it with a different challenge. So we've got the challenge of remembering it, but they need a challenge for using it as well. Why should they bother remembering these words just because I'm asking them to remember them? I need to find something that makes it important to them. But at the same time, they need support. So there's always got to be a way of them finding out an answer if they can't bring it to mind straight away. Next. So these are the strategies that I'm saying that teachers use a lot when they're using an authentic piece of text, especially a piece of literary text. I may not be illustrating all of these, but I'm illustrating a number of these this afternoon. So this one is adapting, and this one is a poem in German. Those people who don't know German, I'll tell you a little bit about it when we see it, which will be now. So this is a poem called Questions of a Pineapple. Obviously, what else would you write a poem before? And this is a pineapple which is having a bit of self-doubt. So it's an existential moment for this pineapple, and it's asking itself questions. If you press the next one, please, Helen, I've highlighted the questions in gold there. So the pineapple is asking itself, how come I'm a pineapple? Why aren't I a house? Not a peach, not a mouse. Why aren't I blue? Why aren't I called woman? And so on and so on. So these are interesting questions, rather quirky. I've never heard pineapples asking these things, but who knows? So that's what appeals to me, that it's quirky, it's unusual. So I would ask my class maybe to focus on those questions and work out some of the meanings. We'd be looking at the grammar in there as well. So we've got ein and kein for a and not a, which is something we don't have in English, and so that's something they find hard to remember about. And then I might move on to the next screen and say, now, what questions would you ask if we change the word pineapple, ananas, if we change that word to, and then ask my class for some suggestions, what might we write a poem about? We could write a poem about a bar of chocolate or a tin of peaches or a car or a house or a blanket. What questions would that thing ask itself? can we write some more questions like those ones in green on the screen? Can we write some questions that a blanket might ask itself? And if we know the word for blanket, we might need to look that up. Can we find any rhymes for that word? So we might make it into a rhyming poem as well. So that's my challenge to go alongside my questions for they should translate it as the wine apple, says Neil on the right-hand side, or pineapple, Alice suggests. So there we are. People have ideas about pineapples. You see, I knew it was a good choice. Next. Performing is one that I think that is really important for us to get across to our learners, that when they are using the target language, very often, and especially when they're preparing for an exam, they should think of it like a performance. They've got to get themselves ready for that moment. They've got to think about what they want to say and how they want to say it, which is the essence of a performance. So they need to think not only about the words, about remembering the words, the vocabulary, the grammar, but also their intonation when they say it, what they've got to say, how they've got to look at the person they're talking to in order to hold their attention. So all of those things about that we know as teachers, because we stand in front of groups of people and talk to them all at the same time, all of those things we know about looking around the room, making eye contact, using our hands to reinforce points. Our teenagers don't know that stuff because they're teenagers. They've never done that before. So we get them to think about language occasionally in these particular contexts being like a performance, which I'll come back to in just a moment. But here's an example on the next screen. So this is the one where I do need the link, the second link, Helen, but not straight away. Can you set it up and then pause it?
Yes, I'm not sure what's going to happen, but I will pause it definitely. Yeah.
So this is, it's like a tongue twister, but it's in the shape of a song. So the challenge is in the word and then in the song. So I've got two levels of challenge on this one. So first of all, is it getting there, Helen?
Yes, it will. I'm sorry about that. That's my mum. I'm afraid I've just cut her off.
Can
you see me? I've moved something in the middle of the screen. Can you see I've moved something or not?
You moved an email from me. Yeah.
Okay. Oh, sorry. Sorry about this. It obviously hasn't. Is this what it was?
Second one, yes.
Right. Okay. So if I can just get there, and I'm going to make sure I can share the. I'm sharing the sound.
Yeah.
So I'll take this off now. Then.
You can pause that just for. Well, you can skip the ads and then pause it, please.
Yeah. Okay.
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 Now go back to the PowerPoint if you can.
Ooh.
Can you reduce that window? Can you?
I can. Yeah, I can. The thing is, the PowerPoint's going to fill it, so I'll have to do the PowerPoint as a window.
Okay, that's it. And then just click on to go down to the next screen. So these are the words. This is the chorus of the song. As you can see, they're not words that make very much sense in French. But all I want you to do, I'd like you to unmute and then all start to read this at the same time when I tell you to go.
And this is without listening to the YouTube, yeah?
First, without the YouTube. So unmute, everyone unmuting. Okay, so we're going to see if we can read this. And I'm looking for the person who finishes first. If you think you finished first, put your name in the chat. Are you ready? I'm going to count to 3. 1, 2, 3.
Tandine, t'as cliqué, t'es tout écouté, tenté de te tuer, de tout oublier, de sauter du toit, de te torturer dans ta structure, pour savoir qui c'est qui t'a tort, si tu mérites que la tantine se tire avec des tartes. Tu voudrais savoir, tu veux la teste, la terre, la toaster en tutu, la retourner, lui faire tâter du tatami. La toaster en tutu, la retourner, lui faire tâter du tatami. Tu voudrais savoir.
Tu veux la
teste, la terre, la toaster,
lui faire tâter,
à retourner, lui faire du tatami.
Thank you very much. Helen, are you still there?
I am still here, yes.
Oh, good. So now what I'd like to do is hear the sound from the video clip. We don't need to see the video. And then keep the words on and see if people can keep up with the words in the song. You see what I mean?
Okay. So just to say, I'm going to have to, I will close this, but you will see it again in a moment, all right? So don't worry, I'm going to move the, I'll move this over here so you'll still have the sound. and we'll get the right. So, are you ready? I play it?
Yeah.
Okay, here goes.
A little bit of introductory music. You just learn some new words.
Right one.
Ta tantine t'a quitté, t'es tout dégoûté, tenté de te tuer, de tout oublier, de sauter du toit. Tu te tortures dans ta tuture, fais le tour de tes tares pour savoir qui c'est qui a tort. Si tu mérites que la tantine se tire avec tes tétards, un tantinette têtu, tu voudrais savoir, tu veux la tête, la terre, la toaster en tutu, la retourner du tatami. T'es triste, tu voudrais téter la tétine comme un toutou, tout va sauter dans ta tête, t'es tout ratatiné et le temps te tasse. Alors tu teases et tu tâtes, téter d'autres tantines, mais la chair est triste et le temps fait tic-tac. Et personne ne toque, tu craques depuis qu'elle a pris. C'est cliqué, c'est claque. Et le temps fait tic-tac. Personne ne rattrape, le doute rentre dans ta tête et tu tombes dans la trappe.
Thank you.
Sorry about
So yes, it's very difficult to keep up with them while they're doing that. I don't know how they did that. It can't have been done in one take. But anyway, so my challenge then was twofold. First of all, it would be in class to see if with a partner you could read it and who would get to the end first, having done all the pronunciation pretty well, of course. If you do it poorly, you have to go back to the beginning and start again. And then try and do it along with the music as your second level of challenge. And by the end of that, usually some of the boys will be putting up their hand and saying, can we just do that one more time? Because I was nearly there. I nearly got there. I was nearly catching up with them, which is something I quite like to hear. If they want to do a bit of French, that's a nice thing for me to hear. Okay, thank you. And the next one, please. So yes, well, how do I establish my rationale for doing an activity like that? Well, my first one is that I like it. I am the most important person in the room because I am coordinating everything that's going on. If I'm not having a nice time, neither is anybody else. So if I like it, that's a good reason to do it. But more seriously, on the next screen, I could say I was focusing on all of these things, which are important parts of my curriculum and of my GCSE preparation as well. So I've got to get them confident with making French sounds. So that's why it's the foundation for them being spontaneous speakers later on. Next. So not the meaning again. There's some of those things in that list don't really make very much sense at all. And I don't think they're meant to make sense anyway. Thank you. So some of these activities you find are just amazing. When you fall upon them, you think that's just a gift come from somewhere. So this one I'm going to show you now is a little poem in Spanish, and I'm just going to show you the beginning of the poem so you can start to think about why I think it's so amazing. So Helen, if you can just press the next one, please.
Just let the cats out.
Yes. This is about extending the text. So that's why I'm just showing you the beginning of it, because I'm going to be asking the class how we're going to extend it. Next, please. Yes. So Veronica, are you still there? Would you like to read this one for us?
Yeah, of course. Un hombre sin cabeza no puede usar sombrero, pero este no es su mayor problema. No puede pensar, no puede leer.
Thank you. So what you can see is if you're not a teacher of Spanish, you can start to work this out because it looks a lot like in French in particular. You can start to work out what this meaning might be. So it's telling us that a man without a head has no use for a hat, but that isn't his biggest problem. And then we've got these beginnings of these lines here. No puede pensar, he cannot think. No puede leer. He cannot read. And you see, we're going to get a repeated construction now. We're going to get he cannot for the next few lines. So you see, people have started to fill it in on the right-hand side on the chat already. My next question to my class would be, what else can't he do? And they would think of some of these things in Spanish because they know these verbs in Spanish, and some they would think of that they don't know in Spanish. So I say, well, we need to find that out. You obviously think that's a really important word. If they've said he can't kiss you on the cheek, then we need to find the Spanish for kiss you on the cheek. So then they have to find that out and make their own sentences. So then I ask them to generate what they think the rest of the poem is, and we come up with a new poem, basically, based on the original. But what I'm doing, obviously, underneath that, linguistically, is I'm getting them to understand the negative construction of a modal verb, he cannot. So where we put the word not, how we use the modal verb, and then the infinitive of the verb. So the verbs they're suggesting, kiss someone on the cheek and so on, will be in the dictionary because they're infinitives. It'll be the right spelling. We don't have to worry about the conjugation because that's the part of the verb that we're using. So some nice examples down the side there. He can't eat quesadillas. They've got kiss up there, very nice. Can't talk, can't soñar. Soñar is to yawn. No, is it soñar, Veronica?
Dream, apparently dream.
Dream, you can't dream. I suppose if you've got no brain, then you can't dream. Yes, very good, thank you. Next screen, please, Helen.
Lovely, lovely response there.
So yeah, I think that's a super activity because it's got all of these things in it. It's got everything, basically, I could hope to have in one individual lesson activity that covers so many different aspects of what I'm trying to do in the curriculum in general. Thank you. So the next one is one, again, I discovered completely by chance on a school website in Paris. And this one is what would be equivalent of year 6 to us, involves all those 4 at the end. So it's got all 4 things. And it's the sort of activity that you could do if you have an off timetable day or one of those project weeks you might have at the end of the summer term in normal times. Or obviously at the moment, it's something you could do as a remote activity. Children could get on with it by themselves. And it would apply equally well in Key Stage 3 as in Key Stage 2. So on the next screen, we'll see what it is. And there's a few returns to press, please, Helen. Yeah. So this is what it is. It's a poetic anthology. So the teacher of this class in Paris has given the children a book. I think it was a hard copy of a book, and asked them to do various things. So they've got to choose their favorite poem out of the book. Then they had to type it up. So they were getting a bit of writing practice. They had to record themselves reading it. They had to write something about why they chose that poem, what they thought it was about, and choose their favorite line. And I would add, for our context, translate it, because we need to get a bit of translation in as well. So the things that are on that website, at that link, when you have a look at that, those, as I say, they are 10, 11-year-olds, and they are reading poems that are possibly a bit beyond them. So I'm thinking of, there's a girl who reads a Baudelaire poem, the one called L'Albatros, which is a very fine poem, but it's quite hard for a 11-year-old really to understand and to put across. And the thing that she does, which is really interesting for our language learners, is she does what a lot of people do when they're trying to perform something. She reads it much too quickly. So she sort of garbles it because she's trying to get it done. So we could play that for our pupils and say, now, what is she doing wrong, this girl? And they say, well, I can't understand a word she's saying. I can see the words on the screen, but I can't hear what the words are. And we say, yes, and that's exactly what you will do when you try and do this as well, because that's part of performance. You need to work out how to speak at an appropriate pace so people can follow you. So that's a nice activity if you've got scope to do it, as you might have, I suppose, at the moment. Next, please, Helen. So I was talking about performance, and this is why I think it's important for our learners, for language learners, because these, when you're getting ready for a performance, think about a school concert when you've been to a school concert. They've been rehearsing probably for half a term, if not longer, for that concert. The first performance, the first rehearsal they had was basically an unspeakable assemblage of sounds coming from different instruments and voices because they didn't know it well enough. And then gradually over time, they get better, they come together, they start to remember what they're doing, and they refine their performance. All of those things are things we do in the language classroom as well. We need people to memorize lots of things. We need them to practice. So when they've memorized it, they're still practicing how to say it, how to use it in a sentence, how to spell it. We want them to refine what they're saying and get better. So thinking about making their language more subtle, more appropriate to their audience, thinking about the register of language they're using. And we want them to evaluate. We want them to feel either they've done a really good job or that there are things that they could improve on. There are things that they wouldn't get applauded for necessarily. And then the bottom one, I think, is the main one that I worry about nowadays with our Key Stage 3 learners in particular. They are, in many areas of the curriculum, to my experience, obsessed with not making mistakes. They don't like the idea of making mistakes, especially if they're going to write it down. They don't want to write something down unless they're 100% sure that it's right. Because that's the way that they're asked to do things in many parts of the curriculum. When you're learning a language, you make mistakes forever. You never stop making mistakes. However good you are at the language, even in your own language, you make mistakes. And you just have to learn to smile at those mistakes. We smiled at the crunky nude and the hot urinal a little while ago, and then improve next time round. So in a language learning classroom context, if you click again, Helen, I think what we're trying to ask our pupils to do is to memorize these things, to refine, to come up with new ideas. Evaluating for us has the real added benefit that we get them to listen to each other. That's one of our contributions, I think, to children's personal development, that we insist they listen to each other. Other areas of the curriculum don't have opportunity for that because they're not talking to each other very much, but we insist on that. We model that good citizenship behavior to them, even when they're in primary school. And because they make mistakes, as we do all the time, that means we can do it again. And doing it again is always a good thing in a language learning experience. Thank you. Next. So this is going back to my vocabulary earlier on. So let me just, we need to you need to put your videos back on, please. Because I want to see whether you've remembered these and whether we can make up some new challenges. There's Alexandra. Okay, are we there? So who remembers then that first picture? Who can do me the sign in for that picture?
I remember.
You can do it then, Helen, go on. Yes, that's right, with a letter C. You're making a letter C because it stands for chocolat. Next one.
And not bonbon.
And not bonbon. Next one. Helen.
Sorry, it's me, isn't it? Sorry. Sitting back.
That's right, banane, either the smiley banane or the peeling banane. And the next one. This was the cheating one, if you remember, yes, haricot, the pit of your arm, of your elbow. And the next one.
Oh.
Very a bonbon. Bonbon is like the chocolat, but with the tip of your finger. And the last one.
Oh, I've forgotten that one.
Oh, come on, nobody. Oh, yes, Bridget's got it. Poulet. Poulet is your chicken.
That as well, yeah.
Okay, well done. And next. So again, this is the thing that's come much more into the front of our thinking over the last year with the work of the NCLP and so on, focusing on the phonics, the way we write sounds and the way we say combinations of letters. So Ofsted back in 2011 reminding us that those sound spelling links are essential to give children confidence, and teenagers as well actually, confidence that they can say a word when they see it. Next. And you need to go press a few times here. So now I'm still needing, I was going to ask you to do the signs as those appeared. Okay, so do the signing for me, this one, and say the word in French.
Le chocolat.
Allez-y, vas-y.
Les bonbons.
Les bonbons.
Le poulet.
Le poulet.
Les haricots.
Go.
Go.
La banane.
And now let's look at our verbs. So remember our verbs or our bits of grammar. That's where is, very nice word. Maud rather. And how about how much is? How much is? And I want. And I have got in your hand, and I've not got. Drop it out of your hand and give me. Okay, so you can tell what my next activity is going to be. If you were working in pairs in a normal situation, I'd ask one of you to make up a sentence in sign language, combining. There's more one doing this one for me. She said, "Où est le chocolat?" She asked me that question. And then the other person has to say the French back. You'll see what I'm trying to do is to put the challenge in both courts. One person's got to make up a sentence. They're thinking hard about that. And the other person has got to decode the sentence. And so Maud is now saying she wants some chocolate. Je veux du chocolat. She's obsessive with the chocolate. You need to get some chocolate down you, Maud. So we'll let you go in a few minutes' time. So we're learning there about, oh, I haven't got any chocolate. Oh. No, Maud hasn't got any chocolate. That's desperate. I think we're going to have to move on. Otherwise, she's just going to be obsessing us all. Thank you. So the point of that would be to get people to remember language, to put language together in different shapes, to recycle all those bits of verbs in particular, which are the ones that I want them to particularly to remember because they are very appropriate for lots of different contexts, and also to focus on the spelling and the phonemes. So all of that came together in the same sort of activity there. Thank you. So I'm nearly at the end and I'm on time tonight. That's all right. So Helen mentioned ALL. I'm sure you all know about ALL, but if you don't, we're a membership association. We'll run nearly 100% by volunteers around the country, like Helen and like me. We do the volunteers who do everything. We create the texts, we make the journals and the website and the blogs and the wikis. And it's all about members being supportive of each other. So it's all about exchanging things, supporting each other, and being there when we get a bit worn down by people who don't understand us as language teachers. Physics teachers don't understand us, geography teachers don't. Why are you doing that? Why are you even thinking about chickens and bananas? What's that got to do with anything? But then we do, you have to. And chocolate, obviously, you have to think about a lot of the time. Otherwise, Maud gets very depressed. So there's many reasons why you might think about joining ALL, and reminding other people who you know who haven't yet joined, they should think about it. At the moment, as Helen said, there is a discount for joining, and there's on the home page a link that takes you to a page with loads and loads of signposting to resources that you can use and access as part of the offer that we are making and our corporate members and our partners are making to support people through the crisis we're in at the moment. So the next one, Helen, please.
Yep.
Okay, so that's where you can get the checkout on that page. If you join online, that's the discount code to use. And then the last one, I still haven't corrected the word congratulations, which I hadn't corrected last time. Mm-hmm. If you are a member of ALL already and you're about to change your email address because you're moving school or leaving university or whatever, please make sure you update your details on the website. Otherwise, we'll lose touch with you. And I think that's the end of the presentation. So yes, there are people all around the country who are thinking about you and are thinking good thoughts for you and hoping that things are going okay, because that's what the language learning community is like. We're very supportive and very hospitable. And in real life, we would now be going off and having a cup of tea or a glass of wine or something to celebrate the end of term for the trainee teachers who have just finished their training year, and the NQTs who have just finished their NQT year. So thank you very much for joining in, and I hope you have a wonderful career and a wonderful summer when that comes, and if we get one. Thank you very much.
So on behalf of everybody, thanks so much. If you'd like to open up your videos and your audios as well, it would be lovely to see you. Stephen, there have been some lovely, lovely comments there. You've inspired us as ever. Really lovely. We all knew that it was going to be great, but it's just lovely. I think you're all starting off on this, and to have someone like Stephen to be able to just remind you it's not all to do with writing lesson plans, and you can get bogged down with that. It's just joy. And I was writing down all the things you say about, it's just joy for language, isn't it? Love for language. Absolutely great. So if you'd all like to say thing, and then I shall take a picture of us all. And here it goes. 1, 2, 3. Great.
The baby somewhere.
That's lovely. And I'm going on to page 2 now, because we've gone on to page 2 as well. Some of you appear on 1 and 2, so I'm still going. Rebecca's in the top left, and 1, 2, 3. Great. That's lovely. Thank you very much. That's great. I've taken my photos, and you got lots of applause there, Stephen.
That's nice. I didn't have time to do my hair. No.
And there were lots of, I think the main, you were able to read the chat, weren't you, actually, because I was going through it, which helped. And people were asking about where things were going to be afterwards, and probably it'll be at the weekend now that I'll put together the web page for Steve. And already on the web page, which I've already emailed part 1, you've got the recording from the first one. This recording will be on it as well. And then, Stephen, you're going to give us a PDF, aren't you? With
I'm going to stick together the 2 sessions into a PDF, so you'll be able to read it as one thing.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's right. I also noticed, I mean, there was a very natural, people were asking people questions. So, for example, you know, it really did spark off interest, the idea of doing poetry. And we had someone who said, oh, I've got a German collection of poetry for young people at home, because she's German. I've forgotten who that was. And other people are saying, have you got ideas about what we could use for Spanish? And that's where, you know, we are a community. So if you're on Twitter, for example, ALL for language, we use an @ don't we? @ALL for language. That tends to be a way we communicate. And then we've got a Facebook page. I will send you all the links so that you can be keeping in touch. But you know, do join us. That'd be great.
Virginia and somebody else were asking about the recording of webinar 1, and that is already on the
It's already there. Yeah. So what I can do, I can even now I'll just find the link so that you've got it. But I can't promise to do it for tomorrow. I probably will have done it by tomorrow, actually. But see how long I can stay up tonight. So if I just get the direct link now. It's got dark, hasn't it? While I've been sitting here, I've just realised that.
It's raining again. And someone's asking about sign language. So I learned sign language, this will excite Helen, when I worked at the BBC. Just look at her go excited now. And I worked, because I worked with deaf children at that time. We made programs for deaf children. But at the time you could learn sign language in lots of local community education contexts. They had free courses because obviously there are more and more sign language users around in the community as well. So we need to be able to communicate with deaf people too. So in London, there was the one, what's the name of the big place up behind the British Museum? There was the City Lit, was it called the City Lit? If you're in London, they did sign language courses there for free. Otherwise, if you look on the website, on the internet rather, you'll find sign language dictionaries in there, which have got video. So if you want to learn individual items of vocabulary, you'll be able to learn those from the internet.
But that's something from years ago. I mean, 20 years ago, I can remember you giving a talk, and I still use that. And I took what Maud said, that there are different gestures, aren't there, for different countries, for different languages.
Yes.
But I remember you doing the bonjour when the sun rises, bonsoir. And I mean, that talk did make me then at least go and learn sign language for letters. And it was last year when my mum was in hospital and we were next to a deaf person, I was able to use that. And that was really inspired by thinking, I want to learn a little bit. So it was not very much, but I managed to communicate a bit. Lovely, lovely idea to be doing that at the same time. How different is it, Maud? You mentioned about the different languages. Or perhaps you know, Stephen, what are the differences? Are they very significant?
American Sign Language is just one-handed. They only use the one hand to do it, which makes it very quick and very difficult to follow for non-native speakers of sign language. The European ones, they do have a lot. So thank you is more or less the same I think in most of the sign languages. But obviously the grammar will be different according to So British Sign Language has its own grammar. It's not like English grammar, but because it's related to concepts, supposedly, originally, some of the things are more British feeling than they would be, say, French or Spanish feeling, I guess.
And Kate is saying it varies in different regions of the UK as well.
Yeah, and there are more than one sign language, of course, even in the UK.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's great. Well, I shall, yes, so I'll go to the website and I'll probably put the recording will be on for tonight. And then when you send me your PDF file, I can send that as the email, or I can put it on the website, Stephen, whatever you want, really.
I think an email would be better for me.
We'll do it by the email. Yeah, that's great. Lovely. Okay, and nice to see the same people as well as last time, which is great. Okay, so you've got to go and have your dinner now, have you, Stephen? Having had
No,
your
I had early tonight. Well, I had a late lunch, a very late lunch, but a large lunch, so
right.
Finished eating for today.
And that's nice. You've got all these languages thanking you. Look, grazie mille. Angelica is there. Or is it Angelica? I should ought to know. Italian. Oh, certificates. I forgot to say, didn't I? I'll write that in the email. I'll just say to people, can you email me back and tell me if you were there? And I'll be saying, what name did you use? Because then I'll be able to match it up. But again, that's probably going to be at the weekend, a little weekend job. Along with doing an escape room. That's another thing I'm going to do this weekend. Okay. Right, unless there's anything else, I think, oh, we've got some Irish there as well. How do you say that, Jane, if you're still there?
Goramayagat.
Sorry?
Goramayagat.
Goramayagat.
So a lot of silent letters there.
I don't know now. We had Kerry doing Welsh the other day. Yeah, so Jessica, if you just tell me who you were, that's fine. I will believe you. I'm not going to be testing. It's not so that I test on you. It's just that I use the right name, really. So Alan's on his way. Nice to see you. Okay. All right. So I shall probably close the room now, and then it'll create the video. And well done. I think that in the end that did work, me sharing it, because I don't know why, Stephen, it was so.
Because last time it was like that, and then we put it right, didn't we?
Yeah. And we put it, well, we thought we put it right by you not putting in a window, but perhaps it was some other reason it was like that. Because earlier on you'd been trying it and it had been fine when you were experimenting with it. So, don't know. So I'm sorry it wasn't, I got the wrong one to hand. I got the number 1, so.
That's okay.
Anyway. So Emily was the very long number. Right, I'll sort that out, Emily. Dank u wel, some Dutch or Flemish. Right. I normally wait for people just to gradually leave, rather than that idea of having them notice that the host has ended the meeting. I thought it was good, really good. And it is, as I say, it's such a pity that you haven't been able to go around to the training colleges themselves, places.
Yeah.
And there's Veronica, who wasn't that lovely to have somebody just volunteer to speak.
Very nice.
Okay, arrivederci. Arrivederci, Amy. Gosh, Slovenia there. Would you know how to say that? Havala Laknok.
It's got a marker with a C, hasn't it? So like a notch, like in
he's already left. Right. Okay. Those people might not be there. I'm not sure.
Yeah.
Thanks ever so much then.
Okay, thank you.
And yes, as you say, I'll do the PDF via email.
Thanks a lot.
Okay.
See you.
Bye then.
Bye.
Bye everybody.